All right, Sunday morning, and it is not early again. I am very, very sore today, man. So, I come out here and kind of mess with these engine mounts again, trying to get to the bottom of it. So I worked on, I cut the tubes off the top and stuck them in the engine mount. And I was trying to figure out a way to get these to kind of fit and then just go back and re-weld that. And I've done a lot of, I've actually ground it down pretty good trying to get it, but the problem is the bracket at the back is way off the frame. If I put it up there where it needs to be, it doesn't, like there's no way that's gonna work. So this has to be placed backwards. I mean, about right in there. But the problem I ran into is it doesn't quite fit. And if it did go on there, I've got the engine 3/4 forward from stock, and that's what these are supposed to be. But if this went up to the frame, it would be more like a 1 inch forward. So I got to looking at the other side mount, and what's weird is when you put it on there, it actually, I can get it to it would fit. And then I got to looking at it. If you see the notch right here where my finger's at, see how deep this is cut? So like they bent it, or it comes way out and then it's bent upward into a 90 degree. That one's even with it. They didn't bring that one out. So that's quite a difference in that. And I don't know why that they would do that. See how deep that corner is right there compared to that one? That's crazy. So that explains why that one fits and that one doesn't. So it's like one of them stock location and the other one is forward or something. I don't know. They screwed that up. The last set I got was a 1/4 inch off. And it makes me wonder if this is the same company, just that was a kit, you know what I mean? So, what a mess. I think I have some engine mounts around here somewhere, some side engine mounts that I bought that wouldn't fit. And I cut the tops off of them and actually used the tube pieces and then just built my own. I'm gonna look around and see if I can find those, and maybe I can find one that will actually work. Because I think they have speed holes just like that. But I'll have to see. Well guys, I try to keep a mostly hack-free channel, but sometimes you just gotta hack it, I guess. But at least it's not all the time, like some people. But what I ended up doing was this engine mount over here, this one's not bent the same as the other one. Like even the angles on the where they bent it are not the same as the other side, so they're not mirror image parts, which is the issue. Now it's funny, this one, after I cut the tube off the top that the bolt goes through, this one is actually going to work. All I got to do is re-weld the tube back on. So this one I can get to fit up there where it bolts on, and this one will fit correctly. It's a little bit close to the engine mount up there, but I might be able to notch that engine mount, grind it just a little bit, bevel it. But this one's actually going to work. So I don't quite get that. It seems like I had the same exact issue with the last set, the set that I bought for my wife's car, because they had speed holes in them just like this, and they were like $35 with free shipping, which is super cheap. Now, in case anybody's going to ask, now a long time ago, I used CPP side engine mounts 3/4 forward, and I don't remember having to modify or anything those. I think they actually fit right. So if you're going to try to buy a set that actually fit, try those. Now they could change to a different company by now. I don't know, because that was several years back. But the cheap ones, they always seem to get you in trouble. So what I did on this one is I cut off the forward piece, and you know, I showed in the other video clip where they messed this up. They've actually got this bent way too far forward, which is going to require a spacer behind that to make it work. So I thought about cutting this end off and then building a whole new lower, but I don't have anything that'll bend 90 degrees like that that's that thick. So I just decided to go a different route. I am going to bolt these on, so it'll have 4 bolts in each one, but I'm going to go ahead and perimeter weld the mount as well, just for the added safety of it. But anyway, I'm going to do it kind of like Steve's car, so when I go back to, you know, body work the front of the chassis and prep it and paint it to make the front frame rails look nice when the hood's up, I'll go in there and bevel grind that weld and fill filler in there, and then use a piece of tubing with some sandpaper on it, and basically make these look like they're molded into the chassis. And then you'll see some nice bolts here. So that's what I'm going to do. So what I did was, this is the part that goes down low down here and goes into the 2 rivets that you have to remove. Without anything behind that, it's too far forward. Like, it is way too far forward. So I made a spacer out of some pretty thick plate, and it will go on there, and I've got it contoured the same, you know, cut out and ground the exact same as that, so it fits right. So what I'm going to do is I am going to bevel grind, angle grind this outside edge right here, angle grind that like 45 degrees, and I'm going to angle grind this bracket 45 degrees, so when that mates up, there will be a trench in there. Then I'm going to go in and weld that fully up, and then go back and grind it, and it'll just look like a thicker mount here. I don't think anybody will ever notice, and if they do, I don't really care. So it's just what I got to do to make this work, you know what I mean? But thing's still pretty hot from me messing with it. But with that spacer, it brings this part here back quite a bit on the mount. And then I cut off the top piece because they didn't bend it in the correct location. And I will be able to place this where I need it to match the other side. And then probably just, it's probably going to need to be either thinned out on this end. I might have to cut this a little bit, like some of this off, but straight up to the edge right there. But I will make it work, and then when I'm done welding and grinding, it should look pretty good. And again, I don't think anybody's going to notice way back down in here on the bottom that it's extra thick right there. But it's kind of the only thing I can do. Now, I thought about going in and hand fabbing mounts, just completely hand building them out of plate. But the last time I did that, it took a couple of days, and today is Sunday and I don't have a couple of days. I kind of want to knock this out today, so I'm going to go ahead and do it this way. Alright guys, so a little bit of progress here. This is going to end up taking all day just to do a stupid mount, because nobody knows how to make parts correctly. The other side fits pretty decent. This side I had to chop it all to pieces and build a spacer to make it fit. Doesn't make any sense. That engine is located exactly in the frame where it's supposed to be, because I'm using stock engine mounts on the front, other than I, you know, open the hole up a little bit more and shove the engine forward. This engine is dead center of that chassis where it's supposed to be, and it's actually a hair lower than what it should be, because I replaced the cushions with originals. The reason I did is because they were about 3/16 thicker, so I put a thinner deal on here so the engine height won't be so high. It still has plenty of room even with an 8-inch balancer, and the oil pan clears and everything, because I set it up in that car, I set it up in that car, I set it up in a 56, and I set it up in Steve's 55. So this is just how I do it. But that's going to work. What I did was I built a spacer for the back, because the engine mount's going way too far forward. So I built a spacer out of pretty thick plate, and it's just scraps that I had over there. And I bevel ground the spacer, and I bevel ground the mount. So what I'm going to do is go in here and put a few welds on this with it bolted to the chassis, put a few welds on that, and try to get this set up on there, which I 45 degree ground this and this, and I ended up splitting this mount almost. I didn't go quite to the end, and that allowed me to twist this, because this end here was sticking up. So this was at an angle like this, and I needed it straight to match the other side. So anyway, when this piece goes in, it'll pretty much match up. But when it's thick metal, I like to 45 degree both sides, and that way when you weld it, it fills it full of weld. So it's a good repair. But that'll end up working, and I've got, it matches the other side the way the brackets are angled and everything where they set. So now that I've chopped it up, made a spacer, and done it my way, it actually fits. But this will be pretty nice. Now I'll tell you one thing that I did, and this is kind of important. These energy suspension urethane engine mounts, they have a slotted hole, an oval hole on both ends. So this piece of tubing from the engine mount, it will go up and down, up and down. So I ended up pushing it all the way up until it stopped, and then I tightened down the nut and the bolt until it seized it up there on the high side. Because if I would have put the tube on there and it was down low, when I put the engine in, it could, the front of the engine could go this way or this way, with one side riding up high and one side riding down low, you know what I mean? It can shift. So if they're both on the high side, it'll work. But doing it this way, building side engine mounts off of your original fronts, when you get done like laying all this in there, and you don't put any tension on this, don't force this in there and like put tension on it and try to weld it in there with tension on it. Lay everything in there where it kind of lays in place, and then just kind of weld it up a little bit, because I'm going to pull it out and fully weld everything and then stick it back in. But anyway, this will basically, when you pull your engine bolts out, it should come out and go in like butter. Like you shouldn't have problems, you know, trying to shift the engine and get it just right to get the bolt in there, and use a dead blow to beat the bolt in and all that kind of stuff. This always works for me with building them this way. But I'm pretty excited now. I mean, I hate that I had to put a spacer on that and cut this into pieces and modify it, but visually no one's going to really notice. The only giveaway is going to be that that is a thicker piece of plate down here, and I don't really care. When I get done pulling that off and then welding the whole thing and then going back and grinding it flat, it'll look just like it was made out of thicker metal there. So I'm gonna get to it. All right, the sun's getting over here on the side of my carport, and I'm cooking because I'm wearing a long sleeve black jacket because I'm grinding and stuff, welding and grinding. So I got this transmission mount bracket finalized. So I've got sides put on. I used the same thickness of steel plate as this and cut them to fit. I 45 degree angle ground the little pieces I cut out, and then I 45 degree ground the bracket, both ends. Filled that channel full of weld and ground it, and then when I was done grinding it, you could see a few little pinholes here and there. So I went back and spot welded those and then ground it again, and then I finished it out with some 80 grit on a little mini sander. This part of the frame, it was bare metal, so I shot it with some of this U-pole weld through primer, and then I shot the back side of this bracket where that's smashed up against there. I only drilled one hole right here for a plug weld, because I'll be welding up these after I pull these self drillers out. But I'm going to perimeter weld this to the frame, and then I'll plug weld that, and then when I pull them self drillers, I'll fill those full of weld. There's a big hole in the frame rail right here. There's one over here too, so I can't really put a plug weld over here on this side, but I'll be able to hit that. That's what they look like after they're in, and I mean, I still got to weld all the way around and then plug weld, but I finished those out really nice. I'm pretty happy with them. I'm actually really happy with them. They look really nice. They look like something that was, you know, store-bought. I'm happy with that. Well, it got dark on me. I'm out of time. I didn't get half of what I wanted to get done. I got the transmission mount pads are done, other than welding them on. I put them back on with self drillers for now, just to get them out of the way. I started to put this engine mount on. It's all, the top's re-welded on, and it actually fits. The other one that I had to cut to pieces, I've got it all welded, but there's going to be a lot of grinding. I ran my air compressor for a long time, and then I let it set about 20 minutes and went back and did some more grinding, and it came on and ran for a long time. And I keep my door shut so the metal dust doesn't get in there. But when I opened the door, the whole garage was filled full of smoke. It wasn't super heavy, but it's cooking the oil and stuff, grease off the cooling fins, I guess, on the engine, on the motor, on the compressor. So it's getting too hot, so I'm gonna end up burning it up. So I'm just done for tonight. I wanted to get that ground, but I just ain't gonna make it. So I still have to move this off the driveway, clean up my mess. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with this. Crap. I might just wrap it up and set it right there in the driveway, I don't know. So I started weed eating over here, and in the edge of my fence here, I put my wife's 55 in there. I'm getting ready to go in and get the new cover and put on there and strap it down. And then I guess this frame and the tour post body is just going to have to sit over here in the yard the whole week until next weekend. So I just ran out of time. Had too much modification to parts that I bought that are supposed to fit, but at least what I modified, it looks awesome and it's going to fit awesome. Anyway, guys, I'm covered in sweat. The mosquitoes are eating me alive, and I am done. So continue on with that next weekend, and this week I'll be working on Steve's car, so should be putting out a few more videos this week. Thanks for watching.